Now bring in Lawson Naidoo for the Centre of the Advancement for the South African Constitution, or of the South African Constitution. That's CASAC. Lawson is Executive Director there. Always good to have you on SABC News, Lawson. How helpful was the briefing held by Justice Madlanga today in terms of understanding where we are in the process?
Well, I thought it was a very useful briefing, Mbuyiseli. It gave us a sense of where the Commission is at. As your reporter said, they've hit the ground running. Justice Madlanga said that they've already commenced with their work. They're now going through the details of securing premises for the work of the Commission, awaiting the gazetting of the promulgation of the regulations that will go together with the terms of reference that were gazetted last week. And the Commission will also have to establish its own rules for the inquiry itself, which will pertain to how witnesses are approached and dealt with and so on. But I think we do have a sense that a lot of work has already been commenced behind the scenes.
And on the issue of witnesses, Lawson, it's a very important one. How should that be handled by the Commission? By that I mean to get the very best information out of people and experts, but also to do so under a very tight time frame, because within 3 months, some sort of preliminary report would be expected from this process.
Indeed. And I think the point that Justice Madlanga made today is that they're going to start with a series of consultations. He did say that the first person that they will be meeting with will be Lieutenant General Mkhwanazi. One would assume that other senior figures in SABC would also form part of those initial consultations, together with Minister Senzo Mkhunu, who we now know is on a leave of absence, but I'm sure will be one of the people that the Commission will want to engage with at the start of their process. They will then have to determine the list of witnesses which will emanate from those initial consultations. And I think we must be aware that this is essentially a fact-finding exercise that is being conducted by the Commission. It's not a trial. And we certainly hope that witnesses are cooperative. And certainly one would hope, especially given the tight timeframes, that as a matter of course, the Commission will issue subpoenas to all witnesses to ensure their attendance at the hearings, so that we don't get unnecessary delays in the process.
And do the terms of reference then of this Commission, Lawson, give it enough teeth, for want of a better phrase, so that whatever conclusions it reaches are able to lead to a process of consequences that is convincing to the public?
Well, the two aspects. The Commission has wide powers in terms of subpoena, of getting access to documents, search and seizure and the like. It would obviously require assistance from some of the law enforcement agencies to execute some of those powers that it has. But when it comes to the issue of how effective their recommendations are going to be, the terms of reference do say that they may make recommendations for criminal prosecutions, disciplinary actions, and institutional reforms. Now, some of those are going to lie in the hands of the executive, and ultimately, when it comes to institutional reform, in the hands of the president himself and of Parliament. So it's going to be a question of following through on some of that. But we've seen, for example, with the Nugent inquiry before Mbuyiseli, where recommendations can be acted on very swiftly during the course of the actual inquiry and not waiting until the end of the process. And one would imagine that the first interim report that's going to be delivered in 3 months, so by the end of October, will deal substantively with the allegations that have been made by Mkhwanazi, and hopefully the Commission will have heard sufficient evidence to provide grounds for making recommendations in terms of further investigations, if not prosecutions.
Just on the point then about the KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner, Mkhwanazi, he, we now know, as confirmed by Justice Madlanga today, will be the first person consulted, and I think the process of consultation is already underway, the process of consultation. We don't know if he will be the first witness called, certainly, but does the burden of proof, based on the fact that he basically has opened this Pandora's box, does the burden of proof fall solely on General Mkhwanazi?
Well, given that the very big purpose and the reason behind this commission of inquiry stems from the revelations or the allegations that were made by General Mkhwanazi on the 6th of July, that it makes sense that he would be the first person that they consult with to get further information from him, establish what kind of evidence that he has to back up the allegations that he's made, and that would be the first port of call to establish what is there, how broad this investigation would need to be. The Commission has also appointed, as you discussed earlier, a team of some 12 people, including an evidence leader in Advocate Terry Motau SC, and a chief investigator in the person of Peter Goss. And there's a whole team of lawyers supporting them that will be hard at work putting together the information that the Commission will need to hear in order to come to a conclusion as to whether there is sufficient evidence to justify further investigation, or perhaps even prima facie evidence to justify the institution of a prosecution itself.
And one of the other issues, just lastly, Lawson, that is still to be settled is that of the protection of witnesses who may need, in fact, heightened protection as they participate in this inquiry. Who would be most suitable when you consider the agencies, the departments that would ultimately be investigated here, and the caliber of people within the law enforcement space whose names might be called into question?
Well, that's an issue that Justice Madlanga sought to address this afternoon, and he said they would ensure that to the best of their ability they get the right people to provide the kind of protection that witnesses may require. They may well look at certain aspects or components of law enforcement agencies, the NPA, the IDAC, the SRU, amongst others, in order to provide that level of experience that would be required in order to protect witnesses. And the issue of the protection of witnesses, of whistleblowers themselves forms an integral part of the terms of reference. So in framing the terms of reference, clear regard was had to the potential threats to witnesses that may come forward.
Lawson Naidoo, always good to speak to you. Thank you so much. Lawson is Executive Director at the Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution. I messed it up going into the conversation, but good to talk to you as always, Lawson.